advocate orally on behalf of their clients. For example, trial lawyers use oral history in the courtroom in arbitration and mediation and garnering testimony from their client. My thesis essentially combines oral history and the study of law. Specifically, I focused on the perspective of practicing attorneys in respect to the following questions. What is justice? How does it function in our society? And how well does the legal system work in ensuring justice for the accused? In doing this, I interviewed 15 practicing lawyers, ranging from criminal defense attorneys to public defenders to prosecutors to plaintiffs' attorneys and civil defense attorneys, to gain their ultimate perspective on whether justice was served or not in their cases. And 5 main factors were revealed by this thesis. First, access to justice was a prevalent theme amongst nearly all of the attorneys, whether spoken of implicitly or explicitly. Access included appropriate representation and the ability to have representation at all. Access to representation generally requires money, and not all cases can be taken on a contingency fee agreement. Contingency fee agreements cannot be used in criminal cases, so the accused must be represented by a public defender who is often overworked or underpaid. Tort reform could potentially affect the ability to have representation at all in some cases. Number 2, psychosocial factors such as mental illness, poverty, and education were common themes. Many mentioned that a significant portion of those incarcerated have some form of mental illness, and debated whether it is fair to be locking people up who have mental illness rather than treating them. The idea of the medicalization of crime was discussed as well. The ability to frame a criminal defendant as a victim of mental illness may lead to reasonable doubt in innocent verdicts or reduced sentences. Number 3, jurors and judges were another common factor. Many attorneys noted that they often come to the courtroom with biases and preconceptions. Judges also may be tired of hearing the same kinds of cases, not willing to listen, and may arbitrarily decide cases, not based on the law a lot of the time. Number 4, the idea of faulty evidence and the violation of police powers was another common theme. If a criminal defendant committed a crime, it didn't necessarily mean the person would be found guilty, which is obvious in the media, like the O.J. Simpson case is a good example. If evidence is gathered improperly or the rules of criminal procedure are violated, the charges may be dropped. Number 5, lawyers' views on what constitutes ethical and just punishment is another significant factor. Some attorneys were against any sort of reduced sentences at all. Others argued that a large population of those incarcerated will be released and therefore should receive some form of rehabilitation or perhaps alternative sentencing. Prosecutors had a utilitarian stance overall. They view the needs of the community over the individual, whereas defense attorneys hold more egalitarian views. They view the defendant as an individual with a particular history or background. And essentially, I concluded that justice is a multifaceted concept that depends on context and perspective. Despite the challenges that attorneys must navigate in pursuing justice for their clients, they remain a positive and noble component of society and maintain a sense of honor in their pursuits. In creation of this oral history thesis, I developed a new perspective on justice, one that has not only enhanced my education, but undoubtedly my future career. And at this time, I'd like to thank Myrna Frommer, my advisor, and she's been essential to the conclusion of this thesis and hopefully in getting it done, helping me complete it in a very positive way and challenging me throughout the whole process. Her guidance.
Mentioned your law degree too.
Yeah, exactly. And Harvey as well, my second reader, has been very supportive and given me support along the way and guidance. And Barbara Krieger, my third advisor, and the Mounds Department I'd like to thank in general, as well as Wale in the Mounds Department, who is a proofreader, and Kathy Fortin, a former oral history student who did a thesis with Harvey, who is also a proofreader. But I'd like to specifically thank Myrna and Harvey for all their support and their help in making it a wonderful thesis.
Well, thanks, Rebecca. It really is going to be a very interesting thesis. I had the pleasure of working in addition to Rebecca this year, working with a young woman named Abigail Russell, who some of you know. She's in Jefferson, Missouri right now. She'll be in a couple of weeks to do her thesis, her official thesis presentation, and then she'll be at graduation, so I hope you'll get the chance to meet her. But since she couldn't come today, and she did such an original and interesting work, I did want you to know about it. So I asked Kay if she could